Welcome to the Real Freedom Podcast, where we inspire you to pursue your passion to gain time and financial freedom through opportunities in real estate. I'm your host, Mike Swenson. Let's get some real freedom together. All right, welcome everybody to this episode of the Real Freedom Podcast. And I'm so excited today we have Edna Keep here. And Edna's journey is really from being a single mom at age 16. You lived in subsidized housing with your daughter and subsidized daycare to now you're a multi-million-dollar real estate entrepreneur and coach. So your major operations are long-term buy and hold rentals for apartment buildings. And your claim to fame is you have $75 million in real estate, primarily built through other people's money. And we'll talk a lot about that. But you're also a coach, a trainer, and you have free real estate coaching on Fridays, as well as Mindset Monday events live on your Facebook page each week. So welcome, Edna. We're so excited to have you.
Thanks so much, Mike. I'm very happy to be here.
Great. Well, why don't we just get started? Why don't you just give us a little bit more detail of that journey? Obviously, that was kind of the short version. So give us a little bit more details of kind of how you got into real estate, your background. You were a financial advisor, and just kind of talk about how that transition into real estate happened for you.
Sure. I was a financial advisor for 15 years. And, a lot of people might think that financial advisors know all kinds of investments, but we didn't. I was trained by mutual fund companies. And that's all I knew. That's all I knew. And for a long time, I never even looked at anything else. So I actually had clients coming in wanting to redeem some of their mutual funds to invest in real estate. And I'm going, are you crazy? Why would you want to invest in an asset class that pays you like 3% a year? Because in our area, it was like, that was what our inflationary rate had been like for 50 years. Mm-hmm. And so just in a few conversations, I started to understand I didn't understand. So we actually took, first of all, an evening class through Robert Kiyosaki's group. Actually, it was Russ Whitney back in the day, but when we got started, it switched over to Robert Kiyosaki. And then a 3-day event. And it was at that 3-day event that our eyes were really opened to what was possible in real estate. And they talked about all the different ways like lease options and land development and commercial and single family home and wholesaling and all these things and mortgage pay down and the fact that the tenants were paying off your assets and all this kind of stuff. And, within 18 months of us starting, we owned 50 doors, had $5,000 a month in cash flow. Our net worth had increased $1 million. My net worth, I got my first million as a financial advisor in 15 years or 13, I guess. And so when we did it in 1 year, 18 months about, I knew I had something and I actually couldn't even sell mutual funds anymore. I had to sell my practice because the last year, I basically looked after the clients I had, but I didn't bring in any new money because I couldn't say anything good about it anymore. And a lot of people thought I was absolutely crazy to give up this business I built for 15 years. Especially people close to me who knew me and where I'd come from and all that kind of stuff. And I left that business making about $250,000 a year. A lot of it was residual because we got paid a trailer fee. So about $120,000 a year or maybe more was residual. So it was recurring no matter if I went to work or not. And so a lot of people say, oh, I can't believe, and working about 3 days a week too, doing that. And a lot of people thought, oh, I can't believe you'd give that up. But you know what? Have never regretted it for a minute. We love what we do. Robert Kiyosaki always teaches, the way to build wealth is to buy assets that other people pay for. And I couldn't even wrap my head around that as a financial advisor, that could even happen, So when I learned that and understood it, it made all the difference in the world for us.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's the thing, a lot of people outside of real estate, just don't understand what's possible. And, you often think like there's kind of this misnomer of like, oh, well, if I own real estate, then I've got to, I've got tenants calling me and bugging me and I've got to go to the property at, they always talk about the 2 a.m. toilets that clog and that sort of thing. And, it was kind of the same thing with me. Like I wanted to get into real estate a long time ago. And what stopped me is I didn't want to be kind of the 24/7 traditional real estate agent, running all over the place. I didn't realize that they had teams, that they had leverage, that they had other people that would take things off your plate. And it's the same thing with investing. Like you can do certain things and you can hire out other things. That's why you have property managers to help with managing the property. And when you have good people surrounding you, you can be so much better at your spot because you've got somebody that's doing an awesome job at their spot. A great property manager can leverage your time and leverage your expertise in ways that you never thought possible because they have systems in place and efficiencies in place. And so it's really people working together. Sorry, go ahead.
They're better at it than we are,
Right.
We would go back to conventions. We were actually inducted into Robert Kiyosaki's Hall of Fame at that 18-month period because we had done so many strategies and done really well. Mm-hmm. And people would come up to me all the time and say, "Oh, how did you do that? How did you grow so fast?" Like I took the same classes as you, same year, same time frame. And you got like 50 doors and we have like 4. And so after a few questions, that's exactly what I found out, what you just said. They decided to step over dollars to pick up dimes.
Yes. I like to say.
Because they wanted to save that $100 a month of property and not do their own property management. They wanted to save a little bit on repairs and maintenance and do it themselves. So these hardworking people already had a full-time job and were trying to build this real estate portfolio, got drawn into that day-to-day crap. And so then they couldn't grow. And I seen that again and again and again. And we were a little bit lucky, a little bit of mindset. We were both making really good money. My husband and I, we had no intention of giving that up. But we knew it didn't make sense for us to learn how to be property managers. It didn't make sense for us to learn how to, handle repairs and maintenance and all. It just didn't make sense. So we had to hire it out. And that was the difference between our growth and their growth. And then the other one was I was used to talking to people about money. And a lot of people aren't. And I find a lot of times people make a mistake. They get excited about real estate and they start to think about approaching other people because they've hit their ceiling and can't get any more mortgages or ran out of their own money. And they go to people with this attitude, "Oh, you have all the money and poor little old me, I don't have any money and I want to buy more real estate. So I want to use your money, even though I'm a beginner." And you can't get good investors when you're talking like that. You have to go in with the goals. I have the goals here. I have got some great opportunities. It's not, I'm looking for money. It's, I've got an opportunity you probably want to hear about. The language is so important. And the confidence comes through when you can talk like that. And I see a lot of people skipping that. I'm going to just learn on the fly and read a couple books and do this. And then they just blow all their potential investors out of the water and never get a chance to talk to them. And a lot of people say, "Well, I don't understand why people would invest with me. Why wouldn't they just do it themselves?" And that's another big one that really holds people back. You know what? There's so many people out there that would love to invest in real estate. Do you know why they don't? Is because there's not enough people telling them the value of real estate. And I mean, yourself, like, that has changed a lot in the last few years. There's a lot more people like us educating people. But back in the day when I was a financial advisor, the reason so many people were in mutual funds is because there were so many of us. We were telling everybody to buy mutual funds, and then they did. And then now I think we got a really great opportunity. But just like when I was a financial advisor, you got to educate people on why they want to invest there. And that is parts that people skip when they're trying to raise money, and then they get stuck and they can't do it and they don't get anywhere.
Well, and I think the other thing too that's really important is there's people that may want to be more active investors and there's people that might want to be more passive. People want turnkey and people want to dig into the details. And so if you find somebody that wants something a little bit more turnkey, or they don't want to be involved into the day-to-day, and you said, "Hey, if you give me X amount of money and I give you X amount of return back and you don't have to do anything," why wouldn't you want to do that if the return is good enough? And so people want solutions to their problems. And if I just said, "Hey, here's an opportunity, you give me this money, I'll do this with it, and you won't have to really do anything day to day, and you get this much money back." Yeah, there's people that want to do that. But then there's also people that want to dig in deeper, but there's so many different opportunities out there. And
fewer people want to dig deeper. like that pool is actually smaller than the people that would love to invest in real estate with the right person, if you educate them and show them that you know what you're doing.
Well, and another thing that you had mentioned that I liked was you were talking about just your approach to approaching an investor. You think about a show like Shark Tank, or you think about starting a business and going to the bank or raising capital. You have a business plan. Here's what I'm going to do. Here's why I'm qualified. Here's what it's going to look like. Here's the money that I need. Here's how it's going to get used, and here's the return. So why wouldn't somebody approach a real estate investment the same way, instead of just saying, hey, here's my empty pockets, can you help fill them? Treat it like any other business plan or any other business you're going to launch. You have to have your act together. You've got to have a plan. And when you present that plan, give them a reason to say yes.
And when you point out the Shark Tank there, you can see like the investors lots of time just chew those guys up and spit them out. Those are the ones that don't know their numbers, don't understand. They're going in with like almost a fly by the seat of your pants attitude, and they just get spit out. But it's the ones that have a really good understanding, and even sometimes say, no, I'm not willing to take your offer. This is better than that. Mm-hmm. Then it goes, okay, this guy has a belief in himself as well, or this girl. Yeah, there's something there. Whereas if you walk in, oh yeah, I really need your money and I'll do whatever you say. Yeah, you're not strong. You have to be strong.
Mm-hmm. So how did that play out for you then in your early days? How did you get started with that, and how did you approach people? And I mean, obviously you mentioned, it turned into 50 doors right away. But how did that process work for you?
There was a couple things that I think we did differently from the average Joe. We hired a coach. We took the training, cost us $27,000 US. I still remember, I think it's around 40,000 now to go through their programs. I got a coach as part of our program. We got a coach. We attended all the training. We really jumped in with all the networking. We still stay in touch with some of the people we met at those classes. And one of the other things is our very first class we took, there was a couple there who kept talking about this other couple who had recommended they come. 2 years later, they owned 20 doors. And we actually met them at one of the events our coach put on, and we ended up partnering with them on our first several deals, including our first apartment building. And it really helped us because they took a lot of our fear away, because we were those people like you talked about it earlier. We're scared of tenants and toilets and roofs and furnaces and all that kind of stuff, and they showed us that we didn't need to be so fearful, including walking into properties and going, I wouldn't live here. And they're going, you wouldn't, but you're not a tenant, you're a homeowner, different level. So we partnered with people who had more experience than us, 2 years worth. But we also helped them take things to the next level, because we were already successful business owners, had a good net worth, had making good income. So we were the ones that brought the first apartment building to the table. But that partnership, and they were also a property management firm, because they decided they wanted that part of the business so they could give up their day jobs. So that took a lot of pressure off us too, because we never did get roped into that property management part. So that was a big thing, partnering with other people who knew more than we did, even if it was only 2 years ahead. And then when that partnership ended, just, different ideas of where things wanted to go, we actually partnered up with another couple, a father-daughter couple, who had taken the same training with us. And it was probably 2-3 years out, because they knew we had partnered with this fellow for a long time. And then they approached us and they said, hey, we've got some deals, but we just haven't been able to raise capital. We'll give you 75% of this deal if you raise the capital. I gave 65% of it to the investors and kept 10%. And then, and of course, that was the last time I did that. After that, I usually kept as much as the managing partner, so 25-30%. But the first time, I kept 10 and brought the investors in for 65%. And that's how I got my, first partners with them. And, that partnership went on to, we bought 300 doors together as they kept finding deals and I kept finding the money. And so it was a really, really good partnership. And I find that happens a lot of time with my students. Some people get involved and they're all gung ho and they're going, yeah, I want to do what you do and I want to be the active investor. Then they start getting involved and they realize how much work it is. And they go, yeah, I think maybe I'll just be the passive investor. And that happens a lot too. I'm in the process of putting some people together in the group right now where some have decided they want to have, or in some cases, they can't use the money themselves. So they put it together with somebody else in the group. And that part is really good too. People have to think abundance. Some people go, oh, I got this 100,000. I got to save it for my deal, save it for my deal. And then they don't find a deal for 3 years and the money's gone, of course. But if they help people along the way, other people will help them back. And that's how things can grow exponentially too. And, it's all learned. When people were first approaching me and say, oh, well, yeah, of course, you could raise money. You're a financial advisor. But you know what? 15 years before that, I wasn't. I learned everything through the training of the mutual fund people. And that's actually how I ended up training people too, because I realized that I had something that I could teach people and it didn't have to be as difficult as they thought it was.
So how big was that first apartment complex that you guys got?
24 doors. Yeah.
Okay.
So we had bought 26. And then that 24 unit. And that's what also pushed us then to just stick with multifamily because, most people, they can get 3-4 houses. We actually got 15 before we were cut off because we had good net worth, we had good income, all that kind of stuff. We even got a couple with 5% down. But then we were just out of the blue. It was like, nope, you're cut off. Even though they wouldn't tell you when you're going to be cut off. We kind of knew at some point we would. So we bought a 24 unit apartment building at $75,000 a door. And just with what was going on in our city at the time, there was a lot of immigration. City was just booming. We actually condo converted that building and sold them out for about $147,000 a door. So that deal turned out really, really good for us. And yet in times, I wish I would have kept it because we increased the rents. We could have had really, really good cash flow, but we also had to take advantage of what was happening in the market at the time. So it made more sense for us to do that.
And I think too, sometimes people, hear a story like that and think like, oh gosh, like they made so much money. And then they think, well, I have to wait for that one. Like you don't always know. They give an example of, like hitting singles or hitting a home run. Like you don't necessarily know when you're going to have that home run, but you can't have everyone be a home run. So you just have to get in the game and hit some singles along the way.
You know what? That's a really good point. In our first 15 houses, we still own, and we own most of them still to this day. They were
all of the 15 were single family home, right?
Yeah, well, we did start we had 3 condos and then we bought a duplex. So some were duplexes and then some we put basement suites in houses and different stuff like that. So it very quickly went to duplex type properties and a couple 4plexes and then moved into the apartment buildings. But yeah, a lot of people will wait and wait and wait. But I had a mentor too. His name was Don Campbell. He wrote the book called Real Estate Investing Strategies in Canada. And he kind of started all his journey in 1981, so many years before us. And he said, and I always kept this in my mind, he said, the most money I made were the average deals that I bought. He said, yeah, I got a couple home runs in there, no doubt, as did we. But he said, my biggest net worth was just that, buying at market value and holding it long-term and letting the tenants pay down your mortgage. He said, my biggest portion of wealth came through there. So I always kept that in mind because, market value, a lot of people go, oh, and I remember having this mentality, even in the first duplex we bought. We seen somebody had a house up for sale. It was actually a duplex. It was 2 bedrooms up, 1 bedroom down. And it looked new because she'd put in all new windows and stuff, but it was actually an older property. And I remember thinking, well, we got to make a low ball offer. So she was asking 160, we offered 140. And she said, you know what? I think with the markets the way they are, I think I can get 160. So then we went back and said, well, what about 150? And she said, well, that's a pretty fair offer. I'll probably take it, but I want to finish the work because I really kind of think I can get 160. So then we said, well, how about we give you 160? And we knew that was a little bit over what it was worth, maybe 5,000 more than it was worth. but you invest with us the down payment, because we at that point we'd already figured out we are going to run out of our own money if we didn't start doing the creative financing and use it. So she actually invested the down payment. We had enough to put it in, but she replaced it right at the closing table. And we paid her 6% interest. So when we explained that to her, she said to us, wow, for once in my life, I am going to win twice. I'm going to get the price I want, and I'm going to get 5 or 6% on my money. She said, if I put that in the bank, I'd earn like 1 or 2. And you know what? It was so funny. Just the other day, I just had a birthday, and she still reaches out to me and happy birthday. And, and that was a first purchase back in probably 2008, maybe. And it's amazing the relationships that you make with people too over the years. But the way that we did it really helped her out for a long time. She ended up having to look after her mother and all this kind of stuff. But, that helped us and really swayed us. But I remember people telling us, well, yeah, I think you overpaid for that property. But you know what? We were making $1,000 a month in cash flow. Do you think I cared if I overpaid 5,000? Not at all. But that's another thing people get stuck on. Oh, I got to get this really good deal and grind the realtors. I actually got a student one time, a realtor, and she said to me, the number one reason I signed up with you, Edna, is because one of the things you said in an interview was stop grinding your realtor, pay them what they're worth. But it's true. People will try to grind and grind and grind. And you know what? They might close that one particular deal. But would you ever deal with them again? Not on your life.
Right.
We ended up getting the best deals because we didn't do that. We didn't nickel and dime people out of their job, because we understand that, sometimes you're dealing with 3 or 4 or 5, 10 buildings that don't close. And so you deserve to get paid on that one, but lots of people don't. And she said, I can't stand working with people like that. And she said that was the number one reason she decided to work with me. So that was kind of funny.
Yeah, I mean, I think people forget too, like it's a relationship business and a reputation business too. And so, even though there's lots of real estates, I'm in Minneapolis, St. Paul area in Minnesota, like there's a lot of agents, but you never know when you're going to work with another agent again. And it might be a really important deal. The market's tight. Let's just say it's a normal residential transaction. Let's say I've got a buyer that we've written up a few offers. They haven't been accepted. What if the one that they really love is the listing agent is the agent that I just had a really bad deal with, or I tried to screw them over, in some way? Well, then they're not going to be too excited to accept your buyer's offer. So you have to play nice in the sandbox, and you have to, build great relationships with people. And yeah, deals fall apart, things fall apart, but being respectful and that stuff really goes a long way for you to help hit your long-term goals.
Absolutely, it does. Yeah, that's a really big thing.
So talk a little bit then about the raising capital piece, because I know the listeners are going to be really excited to learn more about that. What advice do you have for people, outside of how, approaching it with as a business mentality, not just a, hey, look at my empty pockets mentality, but how would you recommend people, if I want to get started in investing, or if I want to get started with, building an investment portfolio, and I don't have the money, but let's say, I'm a real estate agent and I have a lot of knowledge. How would you go about doing that?
Well, we've got our best success throughout everything in our life by working with a coach. I hired my first coach in 1999 when I was working as a financial advisor. I was at a convention, and one of the coaches on stage said, how many in the crowd have a coach? And I looked around, and it was all the ones who were making $1 million a year. And at that time, I think I was making like 150. And I went, okay, that's a shortcut. So hiring a coach is one of the biggest things, because they'll take a lot of that fear away, walking you through the steps that you need to make happen and teaching you what you need to say. One of the things that I teach my students is even the first conversation, you have to look professional, you have to speak professionally, and you have to introduce yourself. So even if you're a doctor, a lawyer, or, whatever you're doing, most of the time people, their first way of introducing themselves is like with myself, it was, well, I'm a financial advisor and I help people create wealth with mutual funds. So you have to change that. And even if you're a doctor, lawyer, whatever you're doing, you have to add that in. You know what? I'm a doctor by trade, so I'm quite busy, but I also help people build wealth through real estate. Oh, how do you do that? You want to create curiosity in that 30-second space that you get a chance to talk to them about. And I mean, there's always going to be the people that go, oh, well, I have a wart on my toe. Could you have a look at it? You know what I mean? But, people also might go, oh, really? You know what? That's something I've always wanted to get into, real estate. How did you do that? Because I'm a busy professional. I don't have time. How did you ever make time? And then the conversation can happen, right? So even just knowing what to say right off the bat helps. The other thing is, and this is what we found was huge success for us at the top. When we only owned a couple doors, we could talk about our team that owned over 20 doors.
Yes.
So it was not doing it by yourself, because if you're a lone wolf, you might raise a little capital from your best friends and stuff because you got a good reputation. But people want to know that you have a team, because what if something happens to you? And then 10 years later, or 15 years later, where's their money? And then the other really big key thing, a lot of times people think it's all about the returns on their money. The biggest thing is return of their money. And that's something people need to wrap their heads around too, because I actually had a student come on board with me and he said, Edna, I'm stuck. He says, for 4 years, I've been stuck at 24 doors, I think it was, or 2.4 million, something like that. And he says, I'm finding deals that can pay 40% and I can't get investors. I go, well, there's your challenge. You're telling him you can get them 40%, right? He said, yeah. And well, yeah, of course. You can't tell people you can get them 40%, because the first thing they're going to be thinking is, oh, that's too high risk for me. I can't do that. So you have to be also careful with speaking those really crazy numbers. Go ahead and over deliver, giving them 40, but you can't talk that up front. You'll scare them right out of the water. I mean, lots of these people are, used to earning 2 or 3 or 4 or 5%. And if you start talking 40, they automatically are going to think that it's too high risk. So
they just can't comprehend that.
They can't. No, it's just high risk and I'm going to lose all my money. So you got to be careful with how you present it that way too. So yeah, those are probably the biggest tips I have. Like, really be careful what you say. Show them how they're going to get your money back. We always buy cash flowing assets, and we show them how out of cash flow alone, we're going to pay you back your principal that you put in over the course of the next 5 years. And sometimes maybe we have to refinance and give you the rest, but you want to show them first how they're going to get their principal back.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So talk a little bit then, our podcast is obviously focused on, building financial and time freedom, through opportunities in real estate. So, obviously you made money in your previous life and your previous career, and now you've made money in the real estate space. What does that mean for you in terms of being able to do what you love? Some people say, well, I'm never going to retire because I love what I do and I feel like I'm never going to work a day in my life, but what does that look like for you because of what you've been able to build in real estate? Trips you've been able to take, kind of dictating whatever you've wanted to do. How does that work for you, Edna?
The number one thing that's worked for me, Mike, is I never knew there was such a thing as a coach, that you could be a coach for other people. And although I kind of was when I was a financial advisor, but with just different terminology, right?
Yeah.
And now my biggest love is helping other people. We got we could have retired probably 10 years ago, maybe not 8 for sure. And had totally replaced our income from my financial business and my husband's trucking business. But because people kept approaching us and we were able to help and both investors and students, that everything that I do now, I do like student based. So I spend 90% of my day with students. I have lots of free time. I got 3 teenagers living in my house, so I get lots of time to spend with them. But I'm one of those people. Like, I will never retire because I don't feel like I work. Even when I was a financial advisor, I used to think, where the heck else can you get paid so well just to visit with people? Because you know what? most of the time people don't want to talk the whole time you're visiting with them all about their money, like
Yep.
the plans in place, It's like, okay, what else is going on in your life? And so you're just really visiting with people and got paid well to do it. It's the same with coaching. Like you're coaching, you're helping, but you just get to socialize with people all day long. That's my forte. I was a C student in school. I still remember saying to one of my students who I passed his class, or one of my teachers, I passed his class with a 50. I said, did you ever think that I would become successful? And he said, you know what? I thought if you found something that you could use your social skills, that you would. And you know what? In school, social skills are not celebrated. They're not celebrated at all. So to be able to make a whole career out of that is just fabulous. So that's the part I love about it. And then and every time a student buys a building, I am just as excited as they are. And so it's like living vicariously, because I remember the excitement of the first few that we bought. And the thing that allows me to do that too is we still have managing partners for everything. So we have managing partners that deal with the property managers and the maintenance and stuff, because there's still not, for most people, it's not entirely passive. Real estate's not entirely passive, unless you have managing partners who have an ownership position. So that's how also we've dealt with most of it, is we have managing partners, because I don't even like talking to the property managers anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yep. Well, it's building leverage and building great people and providing them with opportunities. They're going to show up in a different way because they have an ownership stake in the business. And, it's maybe that's something that they didn't have prior. So now they're going to show up differently. And you've earned that freedom from, essentially deciding who you get to talk to or who you want to talk to, or who's life giving to talk to versus life sucking maybe to talk to.
So true. That's so true. And still get every once in a while, a tenant will try to bypass our property manager and come to me, and I'm going, like, I don't even know the answer to those questions. I'm not trying to put you off. I do not know the answer to that. So I just give them my property manager, and if they try to come back, I had it happen this morning. I said, didn't I give you the property manager's number? Honestly, I don't know the answer to that. They were looking for a 1-bedroom apartment, something. And don't even know. So yeah, the less you know, sometimes the better when it comes to stuff like that. Otherwise you get drawn right back in, right?
Yeah. So what did those relationships look like? So some of your key people, because I know a lot of people, that are building big things are doing it with great people. And I think sometimes people gloss over, like, well, I just want to have those people in place. Like that those relationships take time. The trust takes time, them, going to bat for you and, taking care of problems for you. That stuff takes time. So you can't just say, oh, I want to, hire some managing partners to take care of all my headaches, and now I don't have to worry about it. Talk about building and finding those people and how long you've been in business with them.
Well, you know what? Nowadays, my best managing partners started out being my students. They just excelled. They were really good, like professional, and they had deals. Again, I could raise the capital. They could be the managing partner. And lots of times that's how they got their start. So their first 24 or 48 doors were, with us helping. And then they went on to start building more and more of their own portfolio with some experience and stuff. So that again is a really nice way of doing it, because, I've always had in the back of my mind that at one point I want to invest with my students, because I know that they're trained how I want them to be trained. Like there's lots of other trainings out there. There's lots of other people, but I trained them. I know when they have a good deal. Like I understand it. I can see it inside and out, what I've taught them. And so that's actually one of my goals. I want to be investing $100,000 a month with my students. And I have with, usually with other people's money. But at some point when we're to the point where we're doing that, it's going to be completely passive, and it's going to be an ownership position, and setting our kids up that way too, being the ownership position and stuff like that. So yeah, that's another ultimate goal for us.
Well, and what a great environment, because you're observing them in their natural habitat. Like they're, so you can kind of see like who's showing up, who's not showing up, who puts in the extra time, who gets it. So you've kind of built a community of people that you can watch and observe and provide them with opportunities as things move along. So that's fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's fun to see the growth in them too, when they get that first decent opportunity. And then it's like, oh, the one managing partner we bought 40 or 38 units together, and he had 25% ownership. He didn't raise any capital. We raised it all. That was, I think, year 2, 3 when he was working with us, because he'd done, and the biggest reason for him is he was local to where we were buying. And it was a big deal to us that we had a local somebody close as managing partner. But 4 years in, because he was finally able to quit his job, he was a teacher. And last year alone, he made over 600 grand wholesaling deals he didn't even want anymore. So he decided to focus on multifamily like we do, but he kept getting all these houses because that's used to be what he marketed for. So he wholesaled them to people that wanted houses. And when he started, he couldn't even fathom that. He couldn't even think about that. And part of the thing, and it was a real thing working with him, we kept having to tell him, like, you got to stop being that person that's over at tenant's house at midnight fixing the toilet. You got to stop that, because you can't even think how busy you are. You got to back that up. And it didn't happen until he actually gave up his teaching career. And then finally he was able to have some time to think and network and connect with these people that he could help. Right.
Yeah. Any other advice that you have for folks before we wrap up? Anything that I missed that you want to share?
Build your power team. One of the things for us is the very first part of the course I teach is build your power team, because like you said earlier, you need a good realtor on your team, and then mortgage broker and lawyer and different stuff like that. And lots of times, like you guys have really, really good value. You find the deals, you know how to analyze them, you can help them with stuff like that. So people have to be around like-minded people. That's the biggest thing too, because in the real world, Mike, there's a lot of people out there who are ready to shoot you down, take you down. It's that crab syndrome, right? They're going to drag you down. So if you're around like-minded people doing what you want to do, that's the best thing you can do for yourself.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Edna, for coming on. I appreciate it. For people that want to learn more about you and what you do, how can they get a hold of you?
Well, the best way, you can see that's my website, and you can connect with me through there. I do a lot of free stuff. I have a couple of free Facebook groups, which I'll make sure that you get links to, Mike. And and then if it's something that you're really interested in and you want to, jump right into multifamily, I usually tell people book a strategy call with one of my team, because it's not a fit for everybody. There's, I have specific criteria. I want people to be ready to go with it, because I tell people, you can study till the cows come home, but it's not till you do a deal that you're really even going to know that you know what you know. So I want people who are ready to say, okay, I'm buying a building this year. And not people going, well, I just kind of want to learn the strategy, because that doesn't really fit for me. It's like, go read another book because you're not ready, right? But if you got that burning desire that you want to buy a building, then I can help you.
Yeah. I heard recently somebody had mentioned about, striving for perfection could be an excuse for taking action,
Absolutely.
And so many times people think, well, I just need to get a little bit better. I just need to do this a little bit better. And they use that as a crutch for a reason to not take action on something. So finding the people that want to move forward. Yeah.
I need to know more. Just need to know more. I just need to know more. In some cases, there's people out there know more than me and don't own anything, because sometimes they think they know too much. They scare themselves into not taking action. That perfectionist attitude is one of them.
Right. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Edna, for coming on. I really appreciate it. And there was a lot of value there. So thanks so much. And if you want to learn more about Edna, go to her website, ednakeep.com. And thanks so much for coming on. I appreciate it.
You're most welcome, Mike. It was my pleasure.